You're listening to Delayed Replay, the podcast where we recap and review movies that got delayed in that other universe for various reasons, but came out on time in our universe, and therefore come out pretty different for some reason. You might think this is improvised, and well, that's on you. I'm Steven Shinder, and welcome to the show. Airing sometimes every other week, sometimes one week and then the next week. It really depends. Just roll with it.
Season 7. Hello, listeners. Welcome to another episode of Delayed Replay, that podcast where we recap and review movies that got delayed in that other universe but came out on time in our universe. I'm your host, Steven Shinder, and scheduling has been kind of tough lately, but managed to squeeze in a bit of time where my other self could come in and co-host with me. So here is the other Steven, whom you tend to listen to at the end of each episode, and will again when he talks about his thoughts on Spider-Man Brand New Day in non-spoiler thoughts, and if there are spoilers, he'll give a warning. But how's it going? Hey, it's going fine. Just been kind of busy and whatnot, but still making time to see movies here and there, and glad I was able to universe hop to get to check this one out. Yeah, great having you over. So, for those not so familiar on this show, in the delayed replay universe, we got into the Spider-Verse, both universes did at the same time, and then a few years ago, we got Across the Spider-Verse Part 1, and then followed by Across the Spider-Verse Part 2 a year later. And it seemed like instead of capping off just a trilogy, that would lead to more, and we finally got it. They took a reasonable amount of time to let the animators make this next one, so this is Beyond the Spider-Verse Part 1. Yeah, and over in my universe, we're still waiting for Beyond the Spider-Verse. That one comes out next year, I think, whereas for you guys, y'all over there in the delayed replay universe, you get it uh about this time that we've gotten Brand New Day, Sony, I guess, choosing the same spot to release a Spider-Man movie. Yeah, and I think it's due to August 1st being Spider-Man Day. I think that's the case, and that's when this episode is coming out. We're kind of, rushing this one out. And yeah, this is quite different from the last couple entries, isn't it? Yeah, I get the sense that with the MCU doing the multiverse saga and Secret Wars being a thing and the info on that being under lock and key, that there couldn't really be much tie-ins to that. Like over in your universe, you just got Secret Wars, and it's how do you follow that just a couple months later? Yeah, so what it seems like they're doing here is they decided to just do something not universe shattering, and they just went the other direction, trying to make something more slice of life, which honestly I kind of dig. I was feeling fatigued by some of the stuff that happened in Secret Wars over here. I don't remember if it's called Secret War or Secret Wars. I always get those mixed up. But oh yeah, don't ask me. I mean, you got it in your universe. I am still waiting for it. Yeah, yeah, right. So, yeah, we get to see basically kind of the everyday lives of some of these spider people. For example, there is one who is played by John Heater, who works as a dynamiter. Uh, very, very much doing a Napoleon Dynamite joke there. Yeah, like not so subtle, but he had the mannerisms of Napoleon Dynamite, the glasses and everything, but it was kind of fun seeing that for a bit, and it was a chance for them to flex some of that 80s music in the soundtrack, which I don't know. Are you as fatigued by 80s music as I feel sometimes? Well, for me, it kind of comes and goes. Like sometimes there's an over reliance of it, but other times it's like, yeah, this music from the 80s sounded really good. Yeah, I get that. Like, I feel like sometimes there are animated movies where they rely too much on it and it feels very nostalgia baity. But yeah, I don't know. I was kind of back and forth on it here. Right. Yeah, that's totally understandable. But we do get some other spider people. We kind of spend a few minutes with each of these different characters, and the camera moves to different universes. Yeah, it feels very Rick and Morty. There was an episode where it focused on the different Mortys a few seasons ago, I think. And by the way, people, when I've talked about, at the end of some of these delayed replay episodes, when I've talked about what I thought about the week's new Rick and Morty episode, I realized that the episode I'm seeing that week is like has already aired a couple weeks prior and is just now releasing on HBO Max. So, yeah, keep that in mind when you hear me comment on like, yeah, that was a really weird episode or whatever. But anyway, just throwing that out there. No, but yeah, it does feel very Rick and Morty-ish, a way it's kind of moving between these different universes without focusing too much on a large scale universe ending thing. Yeah, yeah. In a way, I kind of feel like that fits the title because I know we're used to thinking of the Spider Verse as basically just the multiverse and everything to do with spider people. But I think Spider Verse as a title, people think of world ending type stuff. And so it kind of feels like this is trying to get beyond that. Some of the more slice of life stuff. You do see little superhero isms here, but they're low stakes, but still fun to see. Yeah, like there's one universe where there's a spider cat and it saves cats from trees. I thought that was really cute, especially the way the cats were animated, and there's a cat cafe. Um, yeah, stuff like that. I think it's just really fun. Yeah, totally. Um, I do wonder, I feel like people are kind of mixed on the idea, though. Personally, I was appreciating it on a visual arts level, but I don't know, were you expecting more from this sort of thing? Because I truly don't know what I was expecting from this. Yeah, I don't know what I was expecting either, but I did find it to be a breath of fresh air. We do check in with Miles here and there, and, like Spider Gwen, some of those familiar characters. So we do see bits of them and what's going on with them to sort of anchor us and give us little updates. Not really a huge forward progression type of thing, but some nice conversations. And I don't know, I'm just kind of here for that. I feel tired seeing too much action, so I was more welcoming of it than maybe other people were. Yeah, it's definitely appreciated when we don't have to we're not using our brains too much, but it's not a stupid movie, it's very amazing and inspiring to see all the work that these artists put into this sort of anthology type thing, and to put this in the theater. I mean, that was a pretty bold move over there. Yeah, and we even get this conversation at the park where there's a spider person uh who is uh playing frisbee with a dog. some dog owner's dog, and there's this conversation about being a hero, and dogs are kind to people and people should be kind to people. I don't know. I thought it was a nice little convo there. Yeah, it was also kind of weird though when we got to see a world, a universe that looks very much like cyberspace. So I don't know if this is within a computer within one of the other spider universes, but we see like some sort of 90s style 2D spider person with like glitchy effects and stuff and very video gamey, and so we get to see what that one's life is like. And it was I don't know, I kind of like the video gamey music, but this was a section where the style wasn't quite my cup of tea. Yeah, it only lasts couple minutes or so, but it is what it is. I did quite like how we got to see another spider person. It was like a motorcycle deliverer, like delivers motorcycles, but also delivers stuff on a motorcycle, including pizza, which I'm sure is a callback. He even says pizza time. Yeah, and he was played by Ryan Gosling. Like, they don't say his name, they don't say he's Johnny Blaze. He's just got cast as Ghost Rider over here in my universe, but I did kind of wonder if that's what they were going for, if maybe this is a Johnny Blaze who got bitten by a spider instead. Yeah, that was a really interesting choice, a fun one. Ryan Gosling, he has been all over the place, making his way. It's yeah, I don't know, it's kind of a fun direction to go with some of these things. It very much looks like him, but it doesn't feel too much like a copy and paste. Like they really went through all the artistic work here. Yeah. Now, we've talked about the Spider People, but the Beyond the Spider-Verse title also goes beyond Spider People. And we even get to see a universe where, Scorpion is the thing. Not the thing from Fantastic Four, but like, it's the main central hero to follow. Like we see a version of Mac Gargan that got bitten by radioactive scorpion, or bitten, pinched, whatever, and um we see that somehow makes Mac very heroic, I guess because it's not Mac making a suit or whatever, but yeah, we see what it's like when he's grown an actual scorpion tail and is bumping into things, and but eventually learns to be a hero. And I thought that was a really fascinating way to go. Yeah, it's something I really did not expect. We even get a jackal universe. Like we get this is bitten by a jackal, a radioactive jackal, which you know people were experimenting on animals or something, which not cool. But this jackal uh turns uh this guy into jackal man or whatever, and actually teams up with the radioactive jackal. We're so used to the radioactive spider sort of dying off, but here it's like a 1-2 punch. Yeah, I quite liked that dynamic. It was very a dynamic duo type of thing. I thought that was a really fun thing to do. Yeah, there's also a universe where there's like a radioactive butterfly, and so someone gets turned into a butterfly person, and she like flies around saving people. Well, first she's like a caterpillar person for a while, and then goes through the metamorphosis and becomes a butterfly. And very great uses of different colors through all this stuff, the purples and pinks especially. They go through different art styles, and I was quite impressed with all of this. Yeah, totally. Um, let's see. Oh, there's a universe where Otto Octavius is bitten by a radioactive octopus, which I don't even know if an octopus would bite, but whatever. It's a different universe, anything can happen. And so it grows actual tentacles and like is able to use those to save people. Like this was kind of ridiculous, but I also kind of dug it. Yeah, again, it kind of feeds into that thing. It's like, are you more heroic when something like this grows out of you, even though it's from an experiment, as opposed to if you were to build something mechanical and rely too much on that? Yeah, that's a very interesting question, especially when we're in the age of, AI and automation and stuff like that, which I don't know if they were thinking too much about that when writing the script for this movie, but yeah, it's an interesting thing to think about for sure. Yeah, now they do kind of do the inverse of that when there's a universe where instead of Kurt Connors turning into a lizard, he actually makes a mechanical arm and then also decides to wear this lizard outfit, which looks kind of like the aesthetic of a dinosaur outfit that someone would wear in an amusement park or something. Yeah, it looked very much like a giant plushie, which was funny. And it's a different dynamic, being a superhero wearing this sort of thing. It reminded me of Big Hero 6. There was like that character who wears that uh monster looking outfit that looks obviously fake. Yeah, I think that was different from the source material for Big Hero 6. Yeah, that was interesting to see Kurt Connors in that way. And we do see his family in this. Some of these movies kind of forget about his family, like don't really focus on that, but it was cool to see a little bit of him trying to balance his family life with his heroics and working on science. I thought that was pretty cool. Speaking of cats, we kind of buried the lead there. We saw Felicia Hardy as, you know, we talked earlier about spider cats, but we see Felicia Hardy as a cat person in this universe where, that Felicia got bitten by a radioactive cat, and again, it's another duo type of thing where she teams up with this cat and they're working together. And, at first being part of that criminal life, but then learning that with great power comes great responsibility. Like, we see all sorts of different paths for these characters. Yeah. Oh, there's also the universe where J. Jonah Jameson was a Spider-Man. I couldn't remember if we had already seen something like that before, but if so, then we see more of that here. And yeah, it's pretty much more intense when we see him go up against his son who's turned into Man-Wolf. Oh yeah, and there's also that universe where instead of Man-Wolf you have, you know, J. Jonah Jameson's son gets bitten by a radioactive wolf and like turns into a wolf anyway, but it looks kind of different, more on um you know all, all fours more often than man wolf might be, but it's yeah, I don't know. I haven't seen much of man wolf in the comics, so I really don't know, but yeah, it was kind of a different vibe seeing these two back to back within this movie, like those different types of wolf depictions. Yeah, I gotta admit, after a while, it did get kind of repetitive, just doing the whole different animal transformation type thing. Um, we even got um a little bit of, a different version of Morbius who gets bitten by a radioactive bat, and um they can only do so much because they don't want to infringe on the whole Batman thing, so they kind of do quick glimpses and have to make it look like an actual bat but not make it look like Man Bat from DC. Yeah, if anything, they kind of made the snout look more reminiscent of Spider Pig or Spider Ham, or one of those two. They've both appeared in these Spider-Verse movies in the delayed replay universe anyway by this point. Yeah, it's kind of repetitive and honestly not much that you can spoil about the plot, really, other than the vibes are cool. There are different genres of music. We do get K-pop for a segment. We do get jazz for another one, which I thought was cool. Like, honestly, you go into this movie for the vibes more so than for a plot. And so that's why I can see people might have mixed reception about this one. Yeah, and it really makes you wonder, like, if people bring their little kids to these types of movies, do they have more patience for it because they don't have to pay too much attention, or do they have less patience because they want to see more complicated action type of thing? Yeah, I'd kind of like to hear from what the consensus is there, but again, uh, you know, uh, I can't say enough good things about the art and the artist's work that went into all of this. Yeah, it's really impressive and inspiring. Um, if we also get a noir type of tale, except instead of, Spider Noir, Nick Cage's rendition, it's a dinosaur person, like someone who got bitten by a dinosaur but is a detective and everything is black and white. Yeah, that one kind of took me by surprise, which I don't know why it took me by surprise when this movie is doing all of these out of pocket choices. But yeah, it was kind of a fun segment, and honestly, maybe a bit better than Spider Noir, the TV show, because it felt more like what I'd expect from Noir. And this is speaking as someone who didn't grow up in the 30s or 40s or 50s or whatever. So what do I know? No, yeah, I totally agree with you. Like, it's more of what I was expecting from Spider Noir, like a bit more intense in a way, and like I don't know, there's there's a specific type of noir that I like. Maybe it's neo noir, like Manhunter, or I feel like Drive has a bit of that as well. So a bit of that, but in black and white, which I don't know, might be blasphemous to noir purists. Yeah, maybe, but hey, this movie is very experimental, and so I enjoyed it. I enjoyed that stuff. So, like we said, there's not much in this movie in terms of plot. Whenever a segment ends, it kind of just ends. Um, and so when the movie gets to the last segment, it sort of just pans out, does a little reminder, like showing the roster of all the different characters we saw, but they're in all these boxes, columns and rows and stuff to remind us of what we just saw, and kind of dissolves into it turns out they're all part of the Beyond the Spider-Verse logo as it zooms out and then cuts to credits, and then we see concept art throughout. What'd you think of this way of ending it? It was kind of how I'd expect a movie like this to end. Once you know the type of movie that is, it's basically an art project, this movie. Um, we even saw some claymation, which, interesting timing given that DC is doing Clayface and whatnot. But yeah, a bit more elaborate claymation for this go around for a segment. And I really enjoyed seeing all the different attempts. Uh, it's tough though, because I don't know if this is a rewatch type of movie for me, at least not for a while. Like, I don't know, I'd have to be in the right mood for it, because there's some things I'm able to put on because I know the plot that's going on, and basically, if I'm doing other tasks, I can hear the plot going on, even if I'm not always looking 100% at the screen. Something like this, I feel like deserves my attention on the screen. I can't just focus on the music, as good as the music is. But yeah, I feel like this will be a tough one to put on while I'm working on stuff. Yeah, I totally get that. You'd have to be in the right mood for that sort of thing. And I really do wonder, where will they go with Beyond the Spider-Verse Part 2? Will it be more of this, or will that feel like old hat? Will they feel like they have to do something even more different, maybe less of a slice of life art project type of thing and something with a bit more plot? I'm really curious to see what direction they're going to go here, because they don't leave us with anything. No uh tease during or after the credits of some big plot of what'll happen next. But I don't know. Yeah, but I kind of like that because honestly, I get tired of mid and post credit scenes. Sometimes they're a whole lot of nothing. Sometimes they take the attention away from the movie you just saw. You gotta sit with that movie for a bit instead of thinking of the next one right away, in my opinion. So I don't know, I found this particular strategy refreshing. Yeah, that's totally fair. I can see that. All right, so I guess with that we can go into final thoughts and scores. Um, a bit on the shorter side of this discussion because of the lack of a huge plot, but that's the way these things go sometimes. So, what are your final thoughts and score out of 10 for Spider-Man Beyond the Spider-Verse Part 1? I feel like I gotta judge it by a different standard in a way, but whenever I rate movies, I rate them by how much I enjoy them. And I really enjoyed this for much of the runtime and the moment. I was really impressed. But I do admit, as it kept going, some of it felt very samey, some of the beats that it took. So, I don't know. I want to give it its flowers for being so visually amazing. It would be a 10 out of 10 for that alone. But as a movie, something that I have to sit through, I think I gotta. What do I give this? You know what? I'm gonna give it a 7.5 out of 10 uh spider cats. Okay, that's fair. Yeah, I'm actually gonna go a little lower. I don't know how much I'll feel like revisiting this one. Like, and Into the Spider-Verse, so difficult to revisit. So I would give this one 7 out of 10 uh scorpion people. So there you go. And I don't know, maybe I'm just used to seeing strange decisions for certain movies here in the delayed replay universe. And while this was less strange than some of those, I I don't know. There's some things that have been so out of whack that they've kind of affected how I view certain things. But yeah, that's basically where I'm coming from. No, yeah, I get that. That's totally fair. All right, so before we throw it over to you to review some of the stuff you've been watching, I just want to remind people that they can write to us via delayed replay podcast at gmail.com. Let us know your thoughts on cats. And you can also follow the social media listed in the show notes and go to stevenshinder.com for info on the standalones and stepping stones novels. Appreciate any reviews and such on those. And check out Yes Shift, the prog rock podcast with my dad. A couple recent episodes talking with um, Ron Onesti of Onesti Entertainment, Miguel Bass, who did the Play for Chris tributes, Stephen Sullivan from the Forgotten Yesterdays website that lists all the Yes concerts from over the decades. Lots of stuff there. Um, and yeah, that's check out the YouTube channel as well. Yeah, check out Steven Shinder reviews in video form and um letterboxed and yeah, all that stuff. So yeah, so sorry to interrupt there. No, you're fine, you're fine. I felt like I was maybe forgetting something, but people listen to the show. The people who listen to the show, they get the deal. So uh I guess with that, what have you been watching lately that's new? And I understand some of it's kind of related to this spider subject, but what other stuff before you get to that? Yeah, so over on Netflix, there's this movie called Office Romance, and parts of it I could see people have kind of having fun with it, but it got really cringe in places and very surprisingly cringe in certain places. So I would say that's maybe a 5 out of 10. Um, definitely could have been way better. Another one that I watched, The Devil's Mouth. This one is a Prime movie. Catherine Newton, who was in Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, she was in that movie. She and her friends uh have to survive this encounter with a shark, and there's a couple gruesome moments, and some of the setting, the cave and everything looks interestingly shot, when it's not too dark. But yeah, I don't know. I was kind of impressed with some of the location looking shooting, but other than that, I wasn't really that invested in the characters. And I feel like with shark movies, there's only so much you can do that would really impress me. So I'd give this one a 5 out of 10. But, we're talking about animation, and a huge standout in animation that just came out, Avatar Aang, The Last Airbender. Oh yeah, so that's what they're titling it over in your universe. Yeah, it came out in Paramount Plus. It was also in select theaters, but man, this thing really needed a wide release, and the leak really did not help. But the movie was so beautiful, so beautifully animated. It's 2D, and I heard that they were even thinking of maybe putting it in a Spider-Verse animation style. Again, people can fact check that. Maybe I don't know if 100% if that's true, but then they were like supposedly, we're like, you know what, this is Avatar. It's a celebration of that animation style that we see from anime, so we're sticking to 2D. And yeah, that very much is the right choice in my opinion. Although a Spider-Verse style Avatar movie could be interesting, but for Aang and the gang and their reunion, I was on board for this. They're adults in this one, and we see that the world is transitioning toward the type of world we see in Legend of Korra, and the characters feel like themselves, in my opinion. I know people weren't so sure about the voice recasts, but they feel like themselves. And I was the plot is pretty predictable, but even though it's predictable, I still felt it was very beautifully done. I loved the music. The humor was on point as the type of humor you'd expect from Avatar: The Last Airbender. And I don't know, I thought it really delivered. And um my favorite movie, I have this ranking that I do every year listing the movies that I see from the year, whether they be in theaters or in streaming or renting them or what, 2026 movies ranked. And at the top, I still have The Amazing Digital Circus, The Last Act, if you can count that as a movie. But second place right now, I have Avatar Aang: The Last Airbender. Wow, that's really high praise there. Higher than any live action thing. Yeah, yeah. I mean, people are so, well, in the US anyway, are so into live action, but I don't know. I haven't checked out season 2 of the Netflix Avatar The Last Airbender show yet. I've heard very mixed things about it. I thought the first season was only fine, like a 7 out of 10 at best, and I'm hesitant to check out season 2 because I've heard it's worse. I've seen outliers say that, yeah, it's still all right, but I don't know. I kind of thought about watching season 2. I was planning on maybe watching it after watching Avatar Aang: The Last Airbender, but the movie was so good that I wanted to live with that in my mind before, for a while before checking out season 2. So I haven't checked out season 2 yet. Oh, okay. Yeah, that's totally understandable because animation, there's so much more you can do in animation. So what was your score for Avatar Aang: The Last Airbender? I give it a 9 out of 10. Like I said, some of it is predictable. You know where it's going, but it was still such a good ride. I could maybe see my score going down a little bit over time now that I've seen the whole story play out, but um yeah, really impressed with it. I would be surprised if there's anything live action that surpasses either that or The Amazing Digital Circus: The Last Act for me. I feel like the only possible contender could be Godzilla minus zero. Like, I was really impressed with minus one. It tough act to follow, but for all I know, maybe minus zero could surprise me somehow. But we'll see. Okay, yeah, that's really cool. It sounds like you enjoyed that more than I enjoyed the version of Legend of Aang, or I think was the title that we got over here. But okay, what else have you watched lately? So I've finally gotten uh Batman Caped Crusader season 2 just came out. I was thinking of watching the whole season at once, but with how busy I am, there's just no way. I've seen the first 2 episodes. Animation still looks pretty good. I'm enjoying it, but because of how hectic like life is, I kind of need to you know, save the other episodes for whenever I can really lock in because I really want to appreciate this show the right way that I can. I did finally get further into Spider Noir. I haven't finished this season yet, and been watching that in black and white. I thought episodes 4 and 5 were more exciting, more what I was kind of hoping from the show. Still different from what I kind of expected, but it's feels like it's getting somewhere. But I kind of feel like I'm not as impressed by the black and white anymore, even if that is the quote unquote correct way to watch it. At the end of the day, it kind of feels like a gimmick, but yeah, I'm trying to feel as invested as I can in the show. I just wish that they had done the weekly drop because then I wouldn't feel like, man, why'd they drop that show all at once? Why'd they drop Batman Cape Crusader all at once? I want to appreciate these week to week. Yeah, I get that. It's a trend that I wish would die out. And you've started, Star Trek: Strange New Worlds. Been doing that. It's yeah. How have you been enjoying that? Yeah. So season 4 began over here in between delayed replay episodes. I still need to watch a second episode. Um, and yeah, it's enjoyable. I want to be able to appreciate this show as much as I can for what it is. Despite the hecticness of life and the behind the scenes things of, will Star Trek possibly take a break from TV for a while? I don't know. I haven't read too much into that. Supposedly there is supposed to be another Star Trek movie that's supposed to be somewhat different. I don't know too much about it, but we'll see where that goes. But getting back to Spider-Man, I watched that half-hour thing on Disney Plus called uh Generations: The Evolution of Spider-Man, and basically talks about Toby, Andrew, and Tom. It really felt weird because it felt like it belongs as a featurette on No Way Home, if anything. It just has a little bit of teasing of Brand New Day, so it kind of feels out of place in a way, but it was okay, I guess. But Spider-Man Brand New Day, no spoilers. I thought it was a good movie. For some of it, I was questioning how much I liked it, maybe for the first half or maybe two-fifths of it. But as it kept going, I was sold, and we see more interactions with Marvel characters you might not consider being in a spider centric story, but I thought it was well done. It felt like reading a Marvel comic where Spider Man would interact with some of those other characters outside of his bubble, but it felt more organic here somehow. I don't know if maybe it's because um, the screen time was spread out between the characters instead of focusing mainly on just one. And I really enjoyed some of the ideas that this movie was playing with about one's personal identity and how they shouldn't have to try to hide it. I still think I might prefer Far From Home and I guess No Way Home above this one. Uh, but I still think it was good. I prefer it over Homecoming for sure. Okay, so what would you rate it then? Brand New Day, I would rate it 8 out of 10. Um, yeah, I thought it was good. I've definitely seen better movies. I can see people liking this less than me. I can also see people liking it more than me, but because, in either direction. There are bits of it that kind of feel like another movie put within this movie, but I was still satisfied with it. I quite enjoyed it. It was worth the 5 year wait, and yeah, that's Spider-Man Brand New Day. Right. Yeah, you and I kind of did a double feature together, universe hopping, watching this and watching Beyond Part 1. So I quite enjoyed it as well, more than Beyond Part 1, surprisingly. But I guess, we could get a little bit into spoilers if you want. You want to go ahead and do that? Yeah, let's go for it in a moment. So for those who want to avoid spoilers for Brand New Day, pause this, come back to it after you see it. And also, I would just want to say, before getting into the spoilers, this is still Marvel related. What timing that we get the announcement that Wonder Man got canceled, even though it got a season two announcement. And granted, I feel like I'm out of the loop. I did not see the season two announcement over here. But yeah, it's you know, I wasn't. Other people were into the show more than I was, but I still think it deserved to be continued. There's definitely more story to tell, even what direction you could go with it. But yeah, it's a real shame. And with that, and the whole Blade thing, and all the stuff going on with other Marvel stuff, it's hard not to raise an eyebrow at some of these things. And some of the how it looks representation wise and whatnot. Oh man, yeah, that's a shame. Oh, we got Wonder Man season 2 over here, and it's yeah, man. Yeah, Marvel needs to figure out its stuff, and Disney, whoever makes the decisions and whatnot. Yeah, yeah, for sure. All right, but spoiler, and I won't spend too much time on the spoiler, but I guess this is where we'll end the show with. And this is something that people had speculated ahead of time. And I really hate internet culture in that sense because it's like, man, I kind of wish I had experienced this reveal in real time. And weirdly, I forgot the speculation during the first half ish of this movie. And then once it was revealed, I was like, oh, yeah, there was that whole thing. But Sadie Sink's character definitely Jean Grey, and it was kind of you would think maybe that's an odd decision, but also actually not, because this movie is about, do Spider-Man is some of his abilities are going out of control. He's going through some changes. And so one of the ideas that this movie plays with is, do you suppress who you are or do you embrace who you are? And that's very X-Men. And so there are moments where it feels like this toggles between a Spider-Man movie and an X-Men movie, but I thought it was a really well done, compelling message, and could even be looked at as a queer allegory, even if unintentional. So I really was sold on how much of this was done. I thought, Punisher, uh, some of Punisher's stuff in other projects I've been iffy on lately, but I thought the way that he was utilized in this movie was really good. Hulk, there's a line where um, Peter gives him a suppressor. He says, "It's universal, it should work on you," or something like that. And I thought that was maybe a reference to Universal having the distribution rights or whatever for solo Hulk movies. But yeah, some of the Marvel character appearances here. We even get um, Yelena. I was not expecting her really. Kind of a weird, awkward scene that people could maybe be hit and miss on, but it was, that aside, it was nice to have her get a role in this. I just kind of wish it had been in a more formal New Avengers type of um context, because we haven't seen enough of the New Avengers. But yeah, it's overall, I thought this movie was well done. There are definitely other Spider-Man movies that I prefer, and there are other Spider-Man movies that I like less. And check out my Letterboxd Rotten Tomato to see what I've rated for those, I guess. But yeah, definitely worth the wait. There is a kiss that is awkward given the context, and it's kind of creepy the way it plays out. I kind of don't think it needed to be in the movie. Um, but and it was a moment that I predicted where it was like, okay, MJ is not, this isn't really her, it's Jean like controlling her. But the audience in my theater, they clapped when the kiss happened because they didn't realize that that was a possibility, that MJ was being mind controlled. Um, and I guess I was ahead of the game predicting what would happen, but yeah, such a weird moment that I don't think they needed to do, but much of the rest of the movie was pretty good. So really curious to see where they take Spider-Man next after this. Yeah, that's good to hear. I really enjoyed it too. I'd also give it an 8. All right, so I guess with that we can close out. So thanks for joining me, uh, other me, and yeah, people can check out the links in the description. And this show, there's some scheduling stuff going on. I don't know off the top of my head if this will be back next week or later in the month, but we'll see. Keep an eye out. So thanks for tuning in, and without further delay, have a good day. Thanks, everyone. See you later.